I think it's about time that I do another political video. As you can tell, it is the 5th of November. I think it's been about a year since my last one I did. There's been some people that's been wanting an update on my thoughts. Emily, this is a shout out to you. Comment section. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot to talk about, so I'm just gonna say my disappointment with society right now is pretty high. I don't even know where to begin. I was really debating about putting out a video for these kinds of topics with the Charlie Kirk assassination, because he was somebody I actually was kind of hoping would come to my campus, because I did want to debate him, but I'm not going to be getting that opportunity. So the first thing I'm noticing is a lot of the communities I've been engaging with. Last year, there was a lot more opportunities to want to talk things out than there definitely has been now. I mean, last video I put out, I was kind of saying, we do need to talk a little bit more. It is nice to have those, conversations. But now it's really gotten to the point where conversations just don't happen, which is not a good thing at all in any sort of politics. I don't understand how, and it is on both sides too, so there is advantages for me being more of a middle ground, as I can just see things already kind of tapering off. Okay, first off, doublethink is even more of a thing than it was in the last video I was talking about. For those of you who are not aware of doublethink, it is something that is very commonly associated with the book 1984. Basically, doublethink is what happens when somebody believes two things that contradict each other. So in the book 1984, you get things like ignorance is strength or slavery is freedom. You have these kinds of things with more left-leaning politics, especially with a certain group. You have Antifa, which is like anti-fascism, but that's a bit of an example of doublethink, even though many people on the left would disagree with me on this. I'm like, no, it is doublethink, because you're being a very violent organization, vandalizing stuff, which is a very radical thing to do, which radical, whether you're communist, socialist, or fascist, they do that kind of things. And I have seen ridiculous posts. I've seen some on YouTube that I'm not going to put out his name because I don't want to start any beef, but all I'm going to say is there's been somebody doing some community posts, and one of the dumbest takes I have ever heard in the past 5 years was, vandalism is not violence. That was the dumbest take I have ever heard in my life. And you want to know something? I gave the definition. I'm going to pull the definition up right here, because it was just absolutely ridiculous. Definition. It was so, I literally put in the comment section the definition. I have it pulled up right here. Behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone, or, keyword, something. I put this in there, and people are like, oh, well, something is not really referring to any inanimate objects, referring to something living. I'm like, no. Do you not know? And then I think I actually typed up the definition of something to prove the point that something is literally subjective. It could be used for, anything. I'm like, yeah. And then I use the example of if somebody just broke into your house and started smashing stuff, throwing stuff all over the place, I would say they're acting pretty violent. And then one of the guys was like, well, if they're not hurting me, I'm not considering it violent. I'm like, are you delusional? How delusional do you have to be to because people try to cover up the fact that if you're a left-leaning person or a right-leaning person, you are so convinced on the fact that your party never does anything wrong. So lo and behold, California gets set on fire practically. They're burning cars and destroying property, and they're like, oh, this isn't violent. This is a peaceful protest. Another example of doublethink. So yeah, I don't know how we move forward as a society, because things have already started falling like a domino effect. I really don't know where things go from here, because we've gotten, it's gotten so bad, dude. Now, for some things on the right, there has been some people that has been so, Trump is going to do this, he's going to do this. But obviously there's been things that haven't been happening, like how tariffs was going to help, and he was going to help the economy, which I don't think people really went into this knowing tariffs fully, like, as much as people should, because throughout history, I'm not an economist, so I don't know much about the economy, but from my history knowledge, when you look throughout history with tariffs has always been a hot button issue throughout history. It hasn't just been the thing now. Tariffs have tended to benefit big companies, private organizations. They have been really beneficial for them. But when it comes to like farmers and communities in more urban environments, tariffs have actually hurt those communities. So there's been some people on the right that's been kind of a little betrayed with the fact that tariffs have not been helping them, especially farmers. So, I mean, that's been kind of expected. Tariffs have always been like that. But yeah, it's, I really, we're at the point here because obviously political violence has been really hot button issue. We've had issues with people getting jumped on the side of the streets on both sides of the parties. It has been on both sides. There's people that are like, oh, only this side does it. No, the left and the right have committed political violence in the past year. And actually, throughout history, it's been more right-leaning people that's done more acts of political violence. But as of recent times, which right-leaning people still have committed more acts of political violence. But as of recently, I'll probably have to find some statistics on this later. I'm going to have to do this in editing, but provided I remember, because this might be a long-form video. If things keep going the way they are, I think it will end up being there will be more political violence done by left-leaning people. If things keep going the way they are, which I have a very pessimistic view when it comes to politics. It's probably going to get worse. I'm a very realist in that sense. And another thing I'm noticing is what the hell happened to Ukraine and Russia? I remember that was such a hot button topic, and then it's like it just disappears, and it's like, oh, it only came back into fruition whenever, Trump was meeting with Putin in Alaska, which caused some controversy amongst people. And I'm actually writing an essay on that, so I might actually have another video on this specifically, because I have a very, very unpopular opinion. Both political parties do not agree with this opinion, but I am under the opinion that the whole Russian-Ukraine conflict is the West's fault, primarily NATO, which would be primarily Britain and America's fault, mainly. I mean, obviously France and Poland has had it because they're part of NATO, but NATO is the reason why this conflict broke out, and obviously I've gotten to some arguments online with people who are like, well, this doesn't make sense. I'll post this whole thing, and basically they don't read it at all. They just see, oh, it's NATO's fault, and they don't read the rest of what I type, and they're just like, NATO isn't an offensive alliance. Like, how is NATO threatening Russia? And then I'm like, did you not read what I was explaining on how it's a threat to Russia? It's what NATO brings. But anyways, I'm probably going to have to make a topic on this later, because I've been talking about this since the conflict broke out, and there has been people like John Mearsheimer who has had the same opinion. I actually kind of collected this opinion from him, from his research. I did some of my own research, and I actually agree with him. And he predicted this conflict way before it happened. I think I mentioned this last video. But he did this thing in like 2014, maybe 2015. He did this college speech, and he was like, the Russians are going to wreck Ukraine because they don't want NATO to have it, and if they can't have it, they're going to make sure nobody has it. So they are going to wreck Ukraine. And that's exactly what you've seen Russia do. And that was before, because that was in 2014 or 2015, one of the 2 years. That was before 2022. That was before the war broke out. And people ignored his warnings then, and they still continue to ignore his ideas now. And I really do think he is right with how this conflict started. Again, I'm going to have to go into more detail on this in a video later, but yeah. So, politics. I really don't understand how it's gotten to the point where you can't talk to people because the moment you even slightly criticize somebody, you challenge their idea, it's like they immediately just diagnose you with something. They're like, for example, it's like, I think there would be somebody that would say, I think trans people deserves more rights in this and this, and this is what I think should happen. But when you're like, now hold up, I think some of this is a little much. Like the moment you challenge one little thing, or you think something should be done differently, they're like, oh, well then you're just transphobic and you're a racist and you're a fascist. It's like, no. it's hard to talk to people anymore because that's just how things have gotten. It's gotten so ridiculous. And I'm like, listen, I think I said last video, and I'm going to say it again. Can we just get off the internet for like a day, maybe 2 days, walk around and socialize with people outside of the internet? Because I do not understand the people that just only follow politics. That's all they do in their free time. Because I feel like people that do that are just miserable. Because all you're seeing is, oh, it's evil, things are getting worse, oh, society is going downhill. It's just all it shows you, and the news anymore, all it shows you is all these negative things, and it just poisons these people's minds on both sides of the party because they think, oh, things are going so downhill, we're basically effed in the sense that we're screwed. And then you just start to get, you get all this stuff all the time, and then you just start feeling negative, pessimistic all the time. And then it's much easier to start hating things because you hate the way things are going, so then you start hating the people that doesn't agree with you. Why has politics been like this? I don't know. And honestly, there's been patterns and cycles throughout history. We are at a point where it is getting at the more worse end of things. You have all these people complaining about rights. And, you know, oh, I feel, I don't know, discriminated against in some aspect. And I'm like, well, first off, you're living in a time where 100 years ago, you wouldn't even really have much of a say in this matter. For some people 100 years ago. And granted, maybe there are still some things that need better things. I mean, whenever it comes to equality or equity, however you want to put it, it's a complicated road because I'm like, listen, I do agree that there has been some minorities that has been, you know, for the longest time not considered when it came to things in societal issues, but now has been brought to light. So I think, you know, follow in the footsteps of what the African Americans did with, you know, with Martin Luther King. If you're going to be violent and you're going to destroy property and you're going to assault people, that's going to make people not want to listen to you. That's going to make people not want to do anything with your people because they're going to hate you because you're just destroying stuff. That's not the way to go about it. That's not going to get anything done positively. It will get stuff done, granted, but it will not be anything good. You're going to just create this nasty image on yourself. That's all that's going to happen. But the last video I kind of left out some opinions on things because, I don't know, like the election just happening, but you know, it's been a year, so Trump's been in office for almost a year. Obviously, in the first 100 days, a lot was done. So many executive orders. It is literally impossible for somebody to say that he hasn't done anything because he's done a lot of stuff. And I think it's a little hard to follow exactly literally everything he's done because he's just done so much. But I don't understand. Listen, he's not perfect. Like, there are some things I don't agree with. I really don't agree with getting rid of birthright citizenship. And immigration, there's so many people that's like, oh, ICE and things. ICE isn't going to be perfect. Obviously, there has been some very messy things when it came to some ICE raids. There has been some people that's just been taken that probably shouldn't have been taken. Or maybe there's been some injuries that didn't have to happen. Listen, nothing is ever going to go smoothly. That's just what it's going to be. And another thing that drives me crazy is people are comparing Trump to Hitler. There's people that actually believe that Trump is literally Hitler. There are some people that so dead set believe this. Listen, I've been a World War II fanatic for years. I have studied Hitler's rise to power. To even say anything remotely that Trump is close is Hitler is just laughable to me because I have studied this. If anything, if we're going to look, you know, at the world stage, Trump is a lot like Churchill. And I actually think Charlie Kirk shares the same opinion as me on this, or at least he did, was that he is a lot more similar to Churchill with his rise to power. But if you want to be even more specific and kind of consider what presidents Trump has been following the most in terms of how, like, things have gone about, I think the president that has been the most like Trump throughout history, at least in my opinion, is Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson was a very controversial president. He really stretched the limits of executive power, probably even pushed past some limits. Like, Trump has done some things that even I will say is a little stretching the boundaries, maybe more than a little stretching the boundaries. But yeah, Andrew Jackson, I mean, obviously he's responsible for the Trail of Tears. And that was probably his biggest controversy, was Andrew Jackson. You know, what happened with the Trail of Tears. And I think for Trump, it's going to be immigration and how ICE handles it. I think that's probably going to be his most negatively recepted thing. And when it comes to like political parties here, people are like, I think Trump might just be the most dangerous dictator-like president we've ever had. First off, that remains to be seen. We still have got 3 more years, and there's some people that are so avidly thinking that he's going to run again. First off, he's not going to run again because he can't. And there's some people like, oh, he's going to run as vice president. And for people that say, oh, well, he'd run again as vice president, here's the thing. I vaguely remember, I'm going to have to go back through, but I think there was like an interview in one of the many interviews he's done where people were like, oh, are you going to run again? He's like, I don't know if I'll have the energy to run again. I think even he admitted, he said he wouldn't have the energy. I mean, look how old he is. He's not going to have the energy to run again. I don't know why people are so adamant. He's like, he's going to run again. But no, I really don't think he's going to run again, because when he can't, and 2, I don't think he has the energy, and I think even he himself admits that. So it's not going to happen, I think. Just based off common sense. But yeah, in terms of presidents, no. He's not been the most dictator-like president. Actually, the most dictator-like presidents we have had have been on the left. It has been FDR, and then the number 1 most dictator-like president was Woodrow Wilson. Because Woodrow Wilson passed things where literally if you criticized the government or criticized the president or was against joining World War I, you could be arrested and sent to jail. And people were arrested and sent to jail for criticizing the government. That was the closest we ever came as a nation to being a dictatorship, was that president right there. And FDR, I've already gone into details with all the stuff he's done. Obviously, people are like, he was a great president. He got us out of the Great Depression. First off, the New Deal did do a lot to get us out of the Great Depression. It did help a lot. But the problem was he was spending a lot of money. Granted, I've gotten this knowledge and opinion of how things work from more right-leaning people who study economy, so take this opinion with a grain of salt. But from what they said, when you're spending all that money on programs, you're basically just printing money. You're just basically just printing money and then using that money you just printed to pay off debt. But obviously with a few other steps with, oh, let's just create this program that'll give money to this and we'll give people this. It was helping, but he was creating a lot more debt for just spending all this money. What actually got us out of the Great Depression was World War II. And I think even people on the left would even consider, yeah, World War II pretty much got us out of the Great Depression. I think everybody agrees with that. And I think there was a lot of things, there's been a lot of like speculation about, Pearl Harbor, that he knew the Japanese were really close and he knew they were probably going to attack. I think he did know he was going to attack. He was waiting for an opportunity because he knew that if they entered the war, that they would benefit from the war. He knew that the U.S. was benefiting from World War II because they were, with Lend-Lease. They were sending stuff to other countries and getting paid for it. They were getting out of the Great Depression because of that, and they knew they would benefit from it. And then on top of that, what he did with Japanese American citizens, when he put them in those camps, there was a couple of deaths. I know the food wasn't the best. I know there was some disease. They were not really treated the best because there was this whole mass hysteria that, oh, they're going to betray us. They're not actually. They're secret Japanese spies. And one of the things then going into the Cold War, one of the things I do criticize the Republican Party for is this whole with the Red Scare, where they're like, oh, I have this suspected list of people that are communists. And if people are like, okay, but are they actually communist? If people questioned it, they were like, oh, if you're questioning me, are you a communist? I think you're a communist. And then like, it got bad. And I'm like, so Republicans did what Democrats are doing today, where the moment you challenge them, they're like, oh, so you're sexist, you're racist. There's this cycle, and it switches parties. We are at the point where the Democrats are doing that, and sometime in the future, it's going to get to the point where the Republicans are going to be mostly doing that. There's this flip-flopping all the time, and the political parties have changed all throughout history on like certain leanings. I think now the Democrats, okay, no, not Democrats, but liberals have definitely gotten a lot more radical. And I mean, you look at news interviews like Trump in like the 1990s, like interviews, and they ask him stuff on like abortion, for example, or immigration. I'm going to use the abortion one for this example, where he was like, I think it's a very bad thing. And Trump was considered a Democrat in the 1990s. He was left-leaning. And he has had the exact same opinion on that going into 2020s. but now he's considered a Republican. He didn't change his opinion. The political parties moved. They switched. Now you have people that was on the left, that are now right-leaning. I mean, look at Tulsi Gabbard. She left the Democratic Party to join the Republican Party, but I would almost guarantee that maybe in the 2000s or the 1990s, she would be considered a very, very left-leaning Democrat at the time, before she left the party. And the whole thing with New York and, the mayor, I don't follow that because I don't live in New York. I don't care what happens in New York, so I'm not going to share any opinions on New York. I live in Missouri. I'm going to focus on stuff with Missouri. Education, though. Speaking of stuff in Missouri. I really do hope, because I am going into teaching, so as a person who tries to be a little bit more central, now granted, I'm a little bit more biased, so I am more central, but I do lean a little bit more right. Just because morally, I agree more with right-leaning people in terms of certain things, but I don't agree with them on everything. Yeah, but no, I really do hope teachers do get paid more in the future, because education right now is at a really interesting point. Education needs to go through some massive reforms. There has to be some changes to this, because there's a lot of problems with education. I don't think I even need to talk about all the problems with it, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned some of them in the last video, and you've probably seen them from other people with, the food that's at schools, or what kids are even being taught, or, how much teachers are being paid. There's a lot of problems. Obviously, school shootings are a big hot button issue on how we go about that. And if we're going to go to violence, gun violence, here's the thing. Isn't it weird that the week of September 11th, we had all this stuff going on with, that girl on the subway that was stabbed? That definitely, I was more sad than angry, but, that part of me that was angry was the fact that nobody did anything to help her. They just practically watched her bleed out. Now, granted, when you're in shock, or, you're panicked, because most people aren't going to expect somebody to just get stabbed in front of them. How are people going to react to that? Maybe part of that was just that, shock. They didn't know what to do. But I'm listen, the fact that nobody went to help her until after it was basically too late. I mean, there's really, even then, there were some people where she was stabbed and how many times she was stabbed, there was nothing you're going to do. No, you could have at least comforted her before she passed on. You could have at least done that. But no, she had to die in that horrific way alone, which is even worse. And then shortly after that, you had the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I did see the footage for both, the uncensored footage for both. And then there's some weird things going on with the Charlie Kirk one too, where, people were saying he was shot from the front. Not in the video I was watching. I did the one video, you could see blood come out the back of the head, and then an exit here. I think he was shot from the back. I don't know. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, because that just makes anybody's political opinions immediately disregarded. But I'm just saying, I don't think he was shot where people were saying he was shot. I'm just going to leave it there, because, oh boy, the conspiracy theories are crazy. But yeah, no, I do think it's going to get worse. I mean, you have people that's is trying to talk to both sides and are, effective. They killed him because he was effective, not because of his partly because of his political leaning, but they killed him because he was effective. And there's some people at the place I work that, after it happened, and I do sympathize. Listen, not all liberals are these crazy blue-haired psychos, all right? I don't know why people think that. No, there's some of them, there's half of them was even mad at their own party and their own people for why are you celebrating that this happened? This is not a good thing. Why are you celebrating this? I like talking to those kinds of Democrats. I like conversations with them. It's the other ones that were oh yeah, he deserved it. No, he did not. I just don't understand. But the thing was that, the people at my work, apparently from their social media feeds, which is another thing I'm going to get to, is they're being told that, oh yeah, it was a right-leaning person that shot him. And I mentioned one little thing. I was like, okay, there's no way it was a right-leaning person. That just doesn't make sense. Why would somebody who's right-leaning shoot somebody who's right-leaning? And they were like, oh, because of this. I'm like, okay, I think from what I looked into, his parents were right-leaning. But his parents said after he went to college, the guy that shot him, he started getting a lot more left-leaning and a lot more radical with things, and then he, shot Charlie Kirk. He was left-leaning when it happened, but for some reason there's some people on the left that actually believe he was a right-leaning shooter, which I guess misinformation, it's very easy to misinform people of this because they're like, oh, the parents are right-leaning and the son was right-leaning because of that. He used to be right-leaning, but his parents themselves said, at least in one of the interviews I saw, granted it was a Fox News interview, so also take that with a grain of salt because Fox News is a little biased. Just like how CNN is more biased, they're a lot more in favor for like left-leaning, and Fox News is a lot more in favor for right-leaning. Also, if you want a really good news source, use Rumble. They kind of show statistics on like what leaning the news agency tends to be and like which ones are neutral, which ones are left, right. Use Rumble. It's a really good thing to use. Anyways, yeah, I was always telling people, in the last video, I was like, there's some people that actually think they're going to start getting rounded up and put in some kind of concentration camps if they were, gay or bisexual or all that. And I was like, that's not going to happen. And it hasn't happened. But people just completely forget that they were told that and lied to that was what was going to happen. That hasn't happened and it's not going to happen. And yet they continue to believe things that they are getting told right now, like, oh, he's going to run again, or oh, this is going to happen. Have you not learned from the first 10 times you've been lied to? You've seen it throughout 2016. There was stuff they were saying he was going to do in 2016 that didn't happen. And then they just continue to believe it. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand. And I do think social media does have a big factor in it. If we're going to solve things like gun violence, I know I keep kind of weaving in and out. I don't have a script for this. I'm just kind of going right off the cusp here. I even have to admit, yes, gun violence is a problem. But let's look at the bigger picture here. You can't solve all of this violence when you get rid of guns, because there's so much more. The bigger picture is violence in general. You didn't have this problem a lot back in the 90s. You had people bringing rifles in the back of their trucks to school and parking their car there with the rifles in the back of the truck to go hunting after school. You didn't have, I think there was only maybe 1, 2, or a handful of cases of school shootings before the 2000s. It was just unheard of. Why? Because, I don't know, we didn't dehumanize people for having a different opinion as much as we do now. It is so easy to dehumanize people because we get fed all these things on social media and even on YouTube. I don't like politics. I try to avoid politics, like I said, because it dehumanizes the other side. It will show the worst of each political leaning to get you to hate them. And it's on both sides. They will show the worst of the worst. And then they pretty much tell you, don't even try talking to these people because they're unreasonable. They're not going to listen. Some of them won't. The most radical ones will not, whether you're very, very, very right-leaning or very, very, very left-leaning. What about the people that's in the middle, or the ones that are really close to the middle but do listen to both sides? These are the people you want to be talking to. The radicals, you don't want to be fully one way or another. I really don't want to be put in the thing where, well, if you had to pick between communism or fascism, what do you want to pick? Neither. I don't even want to be put in the position where we have to make that decision. Why are we pretending that that's what's going to happen? How about we take steps to, make sure that doesn't happen? I don't want to be Poland, all right? I don't want to be Poland in the 1940s getting invaded, or 1939. I don't want to be in that situation where, who do you have to pick? The Nazis or the Soviets? Who are you picking to be under rule of? I don't want to be put in that position. Why are we even putting that? I say the same thing with immigration. People are like, oh, they're treating this so horribly. They're being so horrible to immigrants. Why were we even put in a situation where we had to react this way to keep it from getting worse? Why were we even put in this situation? Obama deported a lot of immigrants. They called him deporter in chief. Democrats didn't agree with that then. Or Democrats was fine with it then, but they don't agree with it now. When Trump's basically doing the same thing Obama did, albeit a little bit more aggressive. But it's the same thing. Like I said, it goes back to Trump in the 1990s was more seen as left-leaning. But he's had the same opinions on things. He's changed his opinions on a couple of topics. but mostly the same. But he didn't change. It was the political leanings that's changed. I don't know how to prevent dehumanizing people. I really don't. Like, I don't have solutions to any of this. All I can do is just point out that there is problems and there needs to be some kind of solution here, because I really just don't know. I really don't know why things have gotten as bad as they have, if there's a way to reverse it. I'm very pessimistic on the sense that I don't think there is any way we can reverse it. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I do know that much. It's probably going to hit rock bottom. It's probably going to get bad enough to where it's either borderline civil war, or we enter another Great Depression, or World War III happens. I think it's going to be one of those three things. Either a Great Depression, a civil war, or World War III. It's going to be one of those things that are going to happen before any of us come together. It's like I said with the last video. It's funny how the few times Democrats and Republicans are able to come together to agree on things is when some terrible tragedy happens. When 9/11 happened, we were able to agree on things for a short period of time. When World War II happened, we were all able to pretty much agree that we needed to prevent things happening elsewhere in the world. We all agreed on quite a few things for World War II. When terrible tragedies happen, that's when we come together. Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we just find compromises normally? And don't even get me started on the government shutdown, because there's people that are like, why can't Trump just be, a deal maker like Deal Maker Joe? And I'm like, okay, well, let me ask you this. Why are we even in a situation where this is happening in the first place? Why are we at the point where, I'm not getting my way, so I'm going to throw a temper tantrum, act like a child, and let's close down the government because we're not getting our way? And then one of your politicians has to admit on live television in a news interview, all these people that are not receiving SNAP benefits, that are starving because of it, we're using them as leverage. We need them as leverage. So you're going to use suffering people as leverage because you didn't get your way. I can argue against both sides here. Yeah, I do think, maybe we could try to find a little bit more compromise on some things, but at the same time, why the hell are we even put in this position in the first place? And why is all the things you guys are asking for so ridiculous? The point of compromises is that both sides don't get what they want, but there is something that both of them can agree on still. That they're like, okay, we may not get what we want, but you don't get what you want, but this is something we agree on. Because you very rarely get compromises where both sides actually get something they agree on that would slightly benefit both of them. That almost doesn't happen. It's usually both of them doesn't get what they want, but there is something that they can agree on. That's usually how a compromise goes on. The only solution that I know I can guaranteeingly give you is how we can end this Russia and Ukraine conflict. There is two ways this is going to end. The first one is probably the most realistic and, again, most pessimistic view. It's going to be a very bloody and long fought out battle. It's going to happen until they are economically and socially drained. When one side can't just put up with it anymore. When their people can't do it. When their economy can't do it. That's how it's going to end, is one side is going to get crushed and the other one is going to... No side is going to win this war. Ukraine ain't going to win it. Russia's not going to win it. They're going to take a lot of losses before anything is done. I don't know who's going to win. I can't tell you that much. But I can take a guess. I can probably tell you that the country that actually has nukes is probably going to win this. Because like I tell people, Bill Clinton was the president who was part of the deal to make Ukraine not have nukes. And if Putin was really wanting to get leverage here in world power, he knows Ukraine doesn't have nukes, and he knows Ukraine is not part of NATO, so NATO is not contractedly, legally obligated to interfere. If you dropped a nuke, maybe one or two nukes somewhere in Ukraine, he could send a message, be like, back off. And he would probably take a gamble there. It is a gamble, because NATO doesn't have to intervene. And I don't think NATO would want to intervene because they know it would be nuclear war. And mutually assured destruction would be a very, very real thing. But Ukraine couldn't do anything. They don't have nukes. They would just get nuked. And then at that point, Ukraine would probably have to surrender. And they would just be done. I think Russia would win. If we're going to go to that extreme. But if you want a solution to this conflict, let's keep America and Britain out of it. Because, when the war first broke out and Putin was meeting with Zelensky, They were trying to talk some stuff out. But then America and Britain got involved, basically told Zelensky to walk, and it pissed off Zelensky, and he wasn't wanting to do deals with Russia or with Britain and America. He just walked, and he was like, you know what, no. Because Britain and America, mainly America has the Midas touch in reverse. Everything we touch goes to hell in a handbasket. We are so incapable of making anything better, and then our government, whoever is in office at the time, it doesn't matter which political party, just throws their hands up and goes, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. We never do anything wrong. It can't possibly be our fault. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I really just don't understand. Like, if you want this conflict to end, I think what needs to happen, make Ukraine a buffer state. Don't let them join NATO. Let them be the boundary in between. I'm going to go into more detail on this whenever I write that essay, because I'm definitely going to post a video on it. If you make them a buffer state, don't have them join NATO. Don't have them join Russia's economic or military, anything. Just let them be a buffer state. That's the only way we're going to get it. And do not divide, I swear to God, do not divide Ukraine between East and West. Because then you're going to be pinning people who hate the way other people think. The eastern side of Ukraine does not like the western side of Ukraine, and it's vice versa. If you divide it up in a line, then you're going to have the two sides that hate each other looking at each other eye to eye. What's the worst thing that could happen there? It would just lead to more conflict. Like I said, I'm going to go into more detail on this conflict because this is the only thing that I've been actively researching for a long time. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so much. If you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said I was definitely pretty much mainly centrist. But, the more I'm seeing things in society and the more I'm like socializing with both sides of the party, it is very hard for me to try to find ways to defend the left. I can defend the left on some things, but after a certain amount of insults and stuff, it is really hard for me to defend it because people just attack people that they don't realize is not fully disagreeing with them, who does agree on some things and is actually trying to help, but they just, you don't agree with literally everything. You're the enemy. I really don't understand that. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I really don't know. I would hope that the way... I wish more people would watch movies. Here's the thing. This is going to sound so off topic, but bear with me here. What happened to people actually watching movies? They get sucked into social media and just arguing with people, but they stopped watching things that taught us morals here. If you want to use recent examples, Attack on Titan, the ending of Attack on Titan, spoiler alert, I would probably fast forward about 30 seconds if you don't want to be spoiled on that. But Attack on Titan, the entire ending of that is basically to show that do not repeat the cycle of hate, because Eren Yeager wiped out 80% of humanity because he was like, it's just a matter of revenge. Then they're going to want to get revenge, and then, do not repeat the cycle of hate. That's the entire message of Attack on Titan. And why people hated the ending, I don't understand, because the ending, if you look at all the symbolism, tells a really good story. Now, for My Hero Academia, they have a brief mention of this too. Spoilers for My Hero Academia as well. There is a group of characters in there that are not human looking, but are biologically altered. So they'll be like half animal, half person. And they were being, discriminated against. And in one of the shows, they thought the solution was to get violent, destroy property, attack people, and started going on a rampage. And in the show, the good guys have end up convincing the majority of the crowd that this is not the way to go about it. This is only going to make it worse. It's like I said earlier with the Martin Luther King Jr. and the African Americans example. Doing violence is not... Granted, violence is effective, but it creates many more negative problems than it ever will create positive results. It will only create many, many more negative problems. That is not the way to go about it. And I've already explained that enough. But what happened to just basic morals? Like, what actually happened? Wasn't the whole point? It is, don't hate anybody. It should be really hard to actually hate somebody. You can dislike somebody, but even people I don't like, I still respect them as a person. Why are we at the point where we just completely dehumanize people because they simply disagree with us? Oh, is it because those people are told, hey, those people that disagree with you, they're a fascist? So it's actually considered a heroic thing if you are to attack these people that are fascists and all this stuff. Why has politics gotten that bad? Why is the news and the media feeding people into believing that? I feel like we should be really trying to stop that. What happened with movies teaching good morals? Like, I look at the Spider-Man movies, for example, because Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies, in order, from 1, 2, and 3. The first one teaches about responsibility, all right? The second one teaches about sacrifice. The third one teaches about forgiveness, which I think that is something a lot of us needs to learn a lot more today. Andrew Garfield's, other than responsibility, teaches us about the dangers of keeping secrets and being closed off. And then it also teaches about loss. Tom Holland's kind of teaches different lessons, but those lessons do not relate to what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, I just, like I said, I'm going to repeat this for the third time. I really don't know how to go about solving this. I don't know. I really don't know. But I think a good step in the right direction would be stop dehumanizing people. Stop hating somebody who just disagrees with you, and do not believe the crap that is fed to you that literally every single person that's right-leaning is a fascist, or literally every single left-leaning person is some crazy lunatic psycho. No. Because there are very, very, very loud minorities on both sides of the aisle. It's crazy. I mean, political opinions, I don't know. Abortion is a very difficult topic just because it's the sense of, I'm definitely more of a individual liberty. I think people should have the freedom to do whatever, and I don't care what they do as long as it doesn't affect me. The problem when that comes to abortion is, I think what makes it so complicated is if we use that knowledge of, well, I have my rights as long as it's not affecting me in any way, I don't care what you do. I don't care. I mean, I do kind of want people to have more freedom with things, as long as that freedom isn't at the expense of my own. And I think what makes abortion difficult is because it's trying to decide is if it's alive, does those same rights apply to it too? Or are those rights only put in after it is born? I think that's what makes abortion difficult. Immigration, I think it's just common sense. Come here legally. That is definitely a very conservative answer to that, and I am aware of that. It's very something you hear a lot on the right-leaning side, but it just makes sense. Come here legally. Yes, I know the legal process for becoming a citizen is a pain in the behind, but I am telling you, if you're going to come here illegally, you should get sitting back and try to come through legally, especially if you're a criminal. Why the hell are we letting people with criminal backgrounds in here and then, oh, yeah, people are talking about equality and how things want to be fair. Yeah, you've been treating normal, everyday Americans unfair. Why? Because you have people that can just walk across the border and then get paid. They get provided shelter, they get provided food, and then they get provided with opportunities to get jobs at the equal level when they haven't done anything the fair and legal way. You are unfairly treating normal people that have done things the right and correct way because you're just basically giving them all this stuff for free. And we're like, okay, so what the heck was the point of us doing all this work? The thing with equality is the reason why it doesn't work is because every time you do something for one group of people, another group is going to feel like that they are not equal, and then they're going to demand stuff to happen, and there's this constant up and down battle between these groups of people. That's why equality is never going to work. I think the best solution, for me personally, another right-leaning take, is give people the equal opportunity to be equal. Give them the equal opportunity to do it. And I think some right-leaning people don't realize that sometimes that is hard for some people because some people need different things compared to most. So that is where the gray area comes in, which I think more right-leaning people need to realize that. So left-leaning people do have a point in that avenue. But I don't know, man. Foreign policy, I think I don't understand the people that are like, So there's somebody I know on campus that I was talking to the other day, and I don't think she knows I'm a right-leaning centrist, but she was like, yeah, because Trump and Putin are like this, you know, they're best friends. And I'm like, in my mind, because I knew if I would have said anything, it was going to be very awkward at that point. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, doesn't it make sense that if a country that has a different version of government than ours, different struggles, but also has the highest number of nuclear weapons in the world, doesn't it make sense that you naturally don't want to hate that country and be hostile towards that country? I feel like logically that makes sense that, you know, you probably shouldn't hate the country with the biggest selection of nukes in the world because, you know, if you're going to be aggressive and hostile towards that country, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, why is it a bad thing that Trump and Putin are actually, you know, trying to talk things out? Because, I don't know, maybe it's because people are still thinking that the Cold War is happening, that, Russia bad. It's like I said in the last video, we are going to need Russia as an ally if we are going to be able to survive against threats like China. Because like I've said, China is going to rise in a form of power the world has never seen. And they already have. I don't know. I wish maybe there's some things I'm missing. I really don't know. Like I said, put in the comments, if you've even made it this far in the video, put in the comments, you know, questions. I'll try to answer stuff. But, like, just let me know what your thoughts are, because I really wish people would not be the way they are today. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's the best way I can put it. It's the best way I'm going to be able to put it. I don't know, man. I really just don't know anymore. It's just gotten worse after the election.